So iRacing Season 4 just released with a bunch of new changes, and the main big change in my opinion is the new UI. Now although it looks nice and shiny, it is very similar to what we had before. It just might take you a while to get used to it because everything might look a bit different or might be in slightly different places, but it's inherently the same. But the main thing that I'm noticing has changed is we now have a camera tool button. Prior to this, correct me if I'm wrong, we just had to press a keybind to get the camera tool up, but now we actually have a button for it. So that's what today's video is all about. I'm going to run you through the camera tool and how to use it. I did make a video on this same topic about a year ago, but I missed quite a few things, and I figured you should have updated coverage of how to use it now that it looks a bit different. And I know it looks a bit complicated and confusing, but I promise it's actually quite easy to use. So without further ado, let's jump straight into it. And I am going to try to keep this quite quick. So obviously, when you click your little camera tool button at the bottom, this pop-up appears. Now you can see you have all your different things like position, rotation, position type, aim type, view type, all your lens adjustments for the actual camera, property toggles, which again, this is pretty much everything we had before. Advanced things like how far the camera clips, how much the camera shakes, what's the vanish, microphone settings, which is just for audio, blimp controls, and now this is obviously specifically for the blimp camera. This I don't think was here before. And shot range, I believe this is for setting up custom length shots. So I think you can almost design your own TV system where it holds a shot for a specific amount of time. This actually kind of does seem a bit complicated, but I promise it should be quite easy. So if you've never used this before, position, X is to go away and towards, Y is left and right, and Z is up and down. Now, I think this applies to pretty much every camera type. It's just that when you have a camera that is specifically pointed at something, so in this case, the chase cam is pointed at the car, when you do things like the Y adjustment, it keeps pointed at the car and the rotation adjusts to match that. But if you compare this to a static camera, like let's say the roll bar camera, this one, the Y makes you actually move left and right, and any rotation you want to do is all with these rotation controls. P is up and down, Y is left and right, and R is for rolling the camera. The position type literally just means where is the camera, what's the camera doing. So for example, the chase camera is obviously a chase camera, so what it's going to do is follow the car. Chopper camera is for the chopper cam, blimp is for the blimp. Those two really only apply to those two specific cameras. Fixed is obviously for cameras on the side of the track that are just fixed in one position, and then driver is for your POV shots, which is what you see when you're driving. The aim type, again, this is like depending on which camera you're on. So if you're on a live TV camera, you can point it at your car or at the group. So if it's pointed at your car's going to stay pretty central in the shot, but if you have it pointed at group, then all the cars around you will sort of be included in the shot as well to get more of a TV broadcasty style rather than focusing right on your car. And then the last thing here is the view type. Now the view type is a bit strange. I don't actually understand the use for it, but you have live, wide, front, side, top. And if I just click them, you can see what they all do. Now that I'm editing this, I realized that these views are basically for you to look at the camera externally so that you can then figure out exactly where the camera is. So this is useful for TV camera placements and whatnot. It's just for you to gauge where the camera physically is. Now moving on to the lens and exposure section. With zoom level, you have two options. You have zoom level or you have field of view. Now, you can toggle between the two by clicking this auto thing. So basically what happens is if I have it on zoom level with the auto, then when the car is getting closer and further away from the camera is zooming in and out to adjust for that. Whereas if you turn that off and have it set to field of view, the camera will stay at a fixed field of view. You see it's not zooming in on the car as it drives away. But just because you have the zoom set to auto, you can still adjust, so you can have it way more zoomed in and it still will zoom in and out to account for the car coming towards the camera, but it will be generally more zoomed in overall. And again, the zoom only applies to TV cameras that are actually tracking the car. Anything that's an onboard or a chase cam, zoom doesn't really do anything. It's all just field of view at that point. Then focus depth, you obviously understand what that would be. So auto means that when the car is coming closer, the focus is adjusting to compensate for that. If you turn that off and set your focus depth to, you know, like really shallow and then get the car to drive really close to you, it will be in shot for a moment and then it'll go back out of focus. I don't even know there you go. It's getting in focus, but it's too far. This is for if you want to be really specific with some shots, but again, that's more of a creative thing. For TV cameras, you wouldn't really use it. So auto for TV cameras kind of makes no sense. Aperture, if you don't understand photography and lenses, aperture is basically how blurry the things that are out of focus are going to be. with the higher number meaning less blurry, the lower number meaning more blurry. Now, this might not be as apparent on a TV camera, but if I go to the roll bar shot and then move it so I can see a few things inside the car and then set that aperture really low, you can start to see how some things at the bottom there are not in focus and they're really, really blurry, and then things that are in focus are really sharp. And you can exaggerate this effect a lot if you go to properties and uncheck in cockpit. This now does make things look a bit weird if you're inside the car, because it renders for specifically if the camera's in the cockpit or not. And in the case of this car, it's a little bit outdated and it doesn't seem to like it. But you can see how things inside the car are now super blurred. And if you turned your focus depth to manual and then adjust it, you can then choose exactly what you want to focus on. This can be really nice if you have some buttons bound to your focus depth, so you can do a rack focus. And that's the sort of thing that I sometimes will do in my videos. But we'll just change that to in cockpit again so it doesn't look so weird. And motion blur, you obviously will understand what that does, so I don't really need to explain to you. 1 is normally a good value. I'll sometimes use 2, or if I'm getting a thumbnail, like I'm trying to get a still shot of the cars driving, I might crank it up a bit more just to exaggerate that blur, make the cars look like they're going fast. But to have motion blur, you will need to go into your graphics settings, go to the replay section, scroll down to post-processing effects. It took me a while to find that. And then you need to make sure you have your motion blur turned on. You do have to restart the sim for this to take effect, and that even counts when you're just changing between motion blur mounts. Let's say you've got it at ultra and it's a bit too high and you're getting no FPS and you want to lower it, you're going to have to restart the sim. So in these properties, you have 3 subcategories. You have your gyro, your location, and your stabilization. Stabilization just dampens the camera. So basically, if you're on a TV camera and you turn dampen camera off, it's going to look right at the car and look very sharp. You see how that followed that really smoothly. Whereas if I bring it back and turn dampen camera on, you'll see that it has more of a natural swing to it, as if the camera has some weight behind it. You might not spot the difference, but it's there. Things can look quite unnatural if you have that turned off, so I'd recommend having that on, but it also depends what you're trying to go for. Now, location, again, this is where the in-cockpit feature is. So for a TV camera, obviously you can't say it's in the cockpit, it won't let you. But beyond fence, I didn't know what this did before, but according to the pop-up, it's basically just to adjust the sorting order of transparent objects, which means your windows, your windscreen, da-da-da-da. So if you get some weird effects with like fences showing up maybe through glass too much, or, you know, stuff like that, you just want to turn that on. But that will be on anyway for these sort of cameras, and I don't see a reason why you'd want to turn it off. And then gyro, this is pitch and roll. So my best use case for this is if I use a nose camera like this, then if I want it to look really, really smooth, I might turn roll on, and then you can see the camera isn't rolling as the car rolls. So if I turn that off, when the car leans, the camera is leaning with it. It's kind of hard to tell. Over this crest, you might see we're leaning to the right. If I turn roll on, it's going to stay perfectly level. Now, the same thing applies with pitch, but except it's up and down. So when the car's going downhill, the camera is going to stay locked to the horizon. This is a weird effect. I do not like this, but the roll one I quite like if you want a really smooth, dreamy nose shot of the car driving along, a bit like in the F1 movie if you've seen it. So into the advanced settings now, you have clip distance, shake, vanish X, vanish Y. Vanish X and vanish Y are just simply to reframe the shot without having to move the camera at all. So this is if you just want a simpler thing. So let's say the car's in a nice position in your shot, but you kind of need a little bit more to the left of it, or there's some cars next to it that you need to be better framed. You just move that over a bit and they'll fit into shot. Same thing applies for vanish Y. It's sort of just an easier way to change your shot without having to go into all these settings here. And then shake applies to inside cars and outside. So outside, if you have the camera close to the track and a car comes whizzing by, obviously all of that air will make the camera shake, giving you quite an immersive effect. But also, if you don't want too much shake in your shot, you want something a bit steadier, you can turn it off, you can turn it up, whatever you want to do. And then when you're on board a car, it just changes how much camera shake there's going to be, as if it's a GoPro in the car. So if you want a really smooth nose shot like I was doing before, you might want to turn shake off so it just looks like the camera's gliding really smooth. But if you want something really intense, like a shot of the wheel turning or something like that, and you want some immersion, then I turn that shake up. And then clip distance is basically just deciding how far things from the camera are shown. It's kind of hard to explain it. I just have to show you. So let's say I go to an onboard camera like this. This is the suspension. If I just move this back a bit and get a better shot overall, just a bit more in the shot, and then I change the clip distance, and move it that way, you can see it's starting to remove bits of the car, and that's because I've got my clip distance, so I don't want things to show up in the camera that are any closer than that. Now, you may think this is weird, but it actually has some use cases. Like if there's a fence or a slight object in the way of a shot you're going for, you can slightly turn this up, but you have to be careful because eventually you do it too far and you end up removing some of the track at the bottom, and you just don't want it to be obvious that you're doing it, but it can be helpful to avoid some objects if you're trying to get a nice shot. Now, before this used to just say like microphone, so it wasn't very clear, but now it says on cam, so it kind of makes sense. So your first option is a parabolic mic. Basically, if you enable this, it will try to focus more on the sound of your car rather than the cars around you. So if you've got a camera in the middle of a hairpin or something and you drive past, it will try to focus on your sound, even if there's other cars approaching behind the camera. Mic gain, this is literally the volume. If you turn this up, you might deafen yourself a little bit, but you know, it just depends what you're trying to get. Now, I don't know if this chase cam bias option was here before, but from what it sounds like, if you adjust this, it just moves the mic closer to the car that you're watching. Yeah. So you can hear the difference. This is without it. This is with it. Sounds a lot more intense. And then minimum mic distance is just to adjust the closest that the chase cam microphone can be to the car. So again, that's quite similar to chase cam bias, but it's saying the closest amount, so you can't get any closer than that, maybe to avoid clipping and distortion. Speaking of distortion, this is the next option. This was here before, people don't really use it, but it's basically just to simulate that sort of intense noise if you get a car go by that maybe clips the microphone. And microphone clipping, if you don't know, is just when you speak too loud or you make too loud of a noise into a microphone and it can't account for how loud you've gone, so you get this distortion at the top end. So I can just show you in the chase cam. All right, now you can really hear it because I've cranked it up. So, sorry that was really loud, but basically it's just for if you want to get a really raw, grungy shot of the exhaust, for example, or anything like that, and you just really want that raw car audio, then you can turn the distortion on. It makes it feel a bit more like dirty, powerful. You know, again, it's up to personal preference. Some could see it as slightly amateur having the microphone clipping, but also it's quite cool because when it's clipping, it's telling you, oh, that car is really loud. It sounds really good. Blimp controls, I'm not really going to get into, but basically, if you switch to the blimp camera, it just changes how close and far from the car the blimp will be and the velocity that I think the blimp can move at. So this wasn't really here before. There's even a calculate button. So I guess this is to account for what sort of track you're on and how big it is. Again, this might be useful for broadcast stuff, but I can't see it being very useful for anything cinematic. And then for shot range, if you go to something like a TV camera, you'll notice that they already have a start and an end. And that's because if you have the camera tool shut, then obviously the camera will switch to the next TV camera when your car gets further along the track. And this is just determining how long to hold each shot. So you can adjust this a little bit if you want, or you can have your own custom cameras. So you can have it so one camera holds the shot for way longer than it usually would, or maybe have lots of cameras in one area and you want them all to be cutting really quickly. It's quite advanced, quite fancy. It's up to you how you want to make that work. But I personally don't use it. I just film what I need and, you know, make it work. So now I'm going to get into some things which I use all the time when I'm making videos. So if I move us forwards into the race, now this was a Proto GT race at Portimao, not very popular, and I didn't really know what I was doing, so I drove horrendously, but we're going to ignore that bit. I'm going to get into what I do to make cinematic shots, dynamic shots, you know, all the stuff that I do in my videos all the time to make more of an immersive cinematic experience. So if you go over here to config, you have a lot of stuff. You have this edit mode and shot selection. This is more for like live broadcasts, like if there was a league race and someone was broadcasting it from the replay cameras, that's what you want to use. I don't understand that stuff. This is more for after the fact, just recording replays. That's what I'm talking about. Inputs and acceleration. So if you turn that way up and then you start moving the camera, you see I'm just tapping the W and S key and it's moving the camera loads. If you turn it way down and I'm tapping it, the camera is barely moving. Kind of get it. So you usually just want to keep that around the usual area, but if you're doing a sort of dynamic shot where the camera keeps moving, maybe you want it to be slower because you want more control. Up to you. Then you have something which is acceleration. So basically, the longer you're holding that key to move the camera, the quicker it will then go. So again, this can be quite helpful. It can not be helpful. Sometimes I turn it off, sometimes I don't. And then turbo is literally just to whack the camera speed up. So what I usually do with that is I bind a button to toggle that. So if I really need to move a camera from one place to another really quickly, then I'll just turn that on, move it, turn it off. And then right here is something that I never spoke about in my original video, and I'm such an idiot for not doing so. So this is the camera movement section. This is how you can control the camera with your own binds, and you can even use a controller. So previously what I would do is I would get my Xbox controller, which is plugged in, and I would go to move left and I would click it and I would press bind, and then I would move my stick left like that and it would register it. And then you do that for all your inputs, including looking around on your right stick, and then, you know, it would just work. But with this update, I am now seeing a calibrate option for joysticks, which I don't think was here before. So I'm going to give this a go. So as I'm moving it, you can see that it's accounting for it. Now, the one thing you kind of really don't want is a controller with stick drift. My usual controller does have stick drift. I've had to borrow this one for this video. Stick drift will really piss you off when you set up a really nice shot and the next thing you know, the camera's just walked off because you've got stick drift. So try to have a controller that doesn't have stick drift. You can see this one's quite sensitive, but we'll calibrate that one. Calibrate this one. There we go. Now we have calibrated joysticks. And that hasn't done anything. So I believe we still need to bind them. This is how I usually do it anyway. So move left. I'm going to move my stick left. Move right. I'm going to move my stick right. Move forward. Move it forward. Backward. There you go. And then things like move up, move down. You might maybe want to use your triggers so you can have more of a progressive up and down. Or you might want to keep these for something like focus or zoom. It's all up to you. I sometimes have to switch between different binds depending on what the shot I'm getting is. So at the moment, I've been using move up and move down on my D-pad up and down, and then camera aim, this is going to be your right joystick. So now if I go to a static camera, TV static, I can move it around with my joystick, and I can also look around with my other joystick. Okay, this is an interesting one. Look up and look down are inverted to what you'd expect. So when I push this joystick up, the game is looking down. So you want to do these opposite. So for your look up, you want to pull your joystick down, and for your look down, you want to put your joystick up. Tilt left, tilt right. Again, this is like the roll of the camera. So I usually have this on my bumpers because I don't use it very dynamically. It's just to set up an angle and leave it. Toggling manual zoom is not something that I really encountered before. I would usually just go to camera edit and choose if I wanted to use zoom or field of view. But you can have a button for that if you want to. And then zoom in, zoom out. This is what I'm going to use my triggers for this time. So zoom out, left trigger, zoom in, right trigger. There you go. And now I can do all of this from my controller. The last thing I'll do is go to the toggle key 10x, click that and bind that to my A button. And then it means if I need to move quick, press A, and now I can move quick and then get off it and I'm slow again. So now we have like really good control of everything we want to do, right? Press the space bar. Now you can actually see what you're doing. But just don't close the camera at all because you'll lose all control if you close it. But you see that? Now I can look at the car, adjust it with my camera. Focus isn't right, so I have to set the focus. But you can already see the sort of stuff that this allows for. Now, one shot that I really like to do in all my videos, and you've probably seen it before, is the roof shot, a bit like in IMSA, where there's a little camera on the roof and it tracks what's going on around the cars. So what I usually do for this is switch to one of the suspension cameras, because I don't need all of them. If I want one, I'll set it up myself. So right front suspension, for example, and then we're going to move the camera up, go to the top of the car, sit it on the top of the car, and you can see that it's clipping a bit. So that's when we're going to have to adjust our clipping setting. But we'll pop it on the roof of the car, set that angle quite wide, then go to camera edit, advanced, and then turn our clip distance way down. And there we go. Now we have that really nice shot. So what I can do is get the replay going, and then as we're driving, I can then be looking around, and let's say we're battling with another car, I can look at them, track them, I can track this pack in front of me, you know, look at this guy, oh look, we're overtaking him, now we can get a shot, and you use your joysticks to have a really smooth motion. And it's just, you get the idea, it's limitless, you can do whatever you want with this sort of thing, just get some really immersive shots. And of course, you can use all these tools for just simple screenshots as well. It's kind of just up to you. It's whatever you want to do. So now we're passing him and the camera's tracking. It's pretty cool. So yeah, that's one thing I do. Another simple one you can do is just go on the chase camera, and whilst the car's driving, just move the angle, maybe get a little like panning surround shot like this. This can be quite nice to do if you're getting like a nice slow-mo shot. So we put that on half speed slow-mo, and now that's quite a cool cinematic shot of the car going in slow-mo. You get the idea. You can get some really cool stuff, and again, it's all just limitless. It's up to you and up to what you want to do. Now, one final thing that I want to show off is doing like a nice focus pull. So what I'll do for this is I'll go to my config, I'll find focus depth closer and farther, put these on my triggers, and then go for a shot inside the car somewhere. Change your focus depth to manual, and then now I can pull the focus wherever I want it to be. There you go. You can see the effect there. So what this is useful for is if you want to go for like a nice grid shot, like let's say you've got your opponent up ahead and you're all on the grid waiting to go. So you've got this sort of like POV, very cinematic shot. I might want to zoom it in a bit, so I'll have to do that manually here. So we're gonna focus on this Aston here. So you can see the focus is on our dash, and then what I can do is like gradually pull focus towards the Aston. You can get something really cinematic. I guess a lower aperture would help for that look, and having it more zoomed as well exaggerates the effect. So we're in our car, we're looking at our dash, and then it's like, you know, rack focus to the opponent, whilst you can do like dynamic camera moves as well. Like you can do like a sideways dolly like that. You get the idea. I mean, there's just so much you can do. It's genuinely all up to what you sort of want to work out. Like, I'm pretty sure if you want to, you can even get like a pedal cam going on. So as I'm driving, you can see my feet interacting with the pedals. They're not doing the best. They're not, I mean, they're not very high quality, of course. They're very low poly models, but you can see my feet interacting with the pedals. And again, you can get a really cool shot of that, maybe with a low aperture, zoom it in, just showing off that you're driving. Pretty cool. And of course, these internal cameras can be moved however you want, but one thing to take note of is that if you have your camera in, where is it, properties, if you have it set to in cockpit, you can see how it's adjusted for being inside the car, because when you're outside, you'll start missing details like the entire rear of your car. So things like that, obviously, just make sure you don't have it in cockpit. But if you're going to be outside the car, don't use one that's an in-cockpit camera anyway, to be honest. And another thing is the TV cameras. Obviously, they look at your car and you can move them around, but you can't angle them. But you can always change them to static if you want to. You literally just have to change the aim type to static, and boom, there you go. You can have a static shot within your TV1 selection, and you can have a static shot that still zooms, right? So it's static, but as my car's coming closer, it's still zooming in and out. And again, it's a pretty interesting little effect. And then it will start zooming back in once my car's gone. You see it's zooming in now as I drive off. You can do whatever the hell you want with this, and that's what's so cool. Now, before I end, I just want to say the group edit section, this is all so complicated looking. So if I change to TV1 or TV2, you can see all the different TV2s in here, right? So what you can do is, I think you can select one, you can adjust how it's going to go, you can save that specific camera so that when you load this track up again, or let's say you load this car and track combo, you can have those exact cameras that you had before, so you can have your full custom setup for a really unique experience that you wouldn't usually have. And I think you can even save some extras on top of all the regular ones. This is very complex. This isn't anything I dive into. So if you wanted to do this, you're just going to have to experiment. I don't touch any of this stuff because I just am afraid I'm going to mess it all up. But it is there for you to have a look at if you want to. Another really cool one that I like to do is get one of the TV cameras and then put it in a spot where when my car drives by, the camera's going to be really close to it. So it's like a super close-up drive-by. It's just really immersive, really fast looking. So we'll wait for it to be basically next to the camera. There it is. We'll move the camera so it's really close, maybe low to the ground as well. We can change it so it's a fixed rather than a zoom, or have it on a zoom, whatever you want. And then make sure it's on dampen camera, otherwise it will look really unnatural. I'll show you what I mean. You see how sharp that is? It's not natural. But obviously you have dampen camera, and then you get this really cool effect if you turn the motion blur way up as well. And the car goes by. It's quite intense. That was maybe a little bit over the top, but you get the idea. Again, you can just get a really powerful, intense shot with that sort of thing. There is one more thing which I noticed earlier, which I think is new. You have this open VCR tool at the bottom, right? Click this, Now, you usually had this where, let's say you're in a 24-hour race, someone gets killed, you want a clip of it happening, so you do create a slice, you get the start point and the end point, and then you have a separate replay file of just that moment, and you can send that replay to iRacing to make a report. So let's say you get killed, you can make a short replay, so you don't have to send them your entire 20-minute race, you can just send them a little clip of what happened. But the one thing I noticed in here, which I don't actually know if this was here or not before, I don't remember this, is you have these visual effects options. Now, I don't know how useful these are, but if you turn vignette on, it gives you this dark edge around the screen. And then you have the visual effects, which are normal, black and white, sepia, red pop, sigmoid, contrast, color bleach, color clip, color squish, color emboss, vivid, bloom, old film, VHS, grain, 8-bit. Now, I don't know if this was all here before, but you can see what they all do. It's actually quite cool. You can get some visual effects straight into your recording. Like, look at that. Just red. That's pretty intense looking. Now, I don't think this was here before, but that can give you some really, really cool effects. So, again, just experiment, try them all out. They're pretty cool. You can kind of tell what they all do based on their names. I mean, look at that. A film filter on your iRacing footage. That's crazy. VHS, grain, 8-bit. Like this, okay, this was not here before. And if it was, I am actually so surprised. But this is really cool. This can make some really interesting stuff. Like, this is obviously a retro racing series. So, yeah, VHS camera, awesome. That looks really cool. Imagine you have the camera set in the cockpit. It's some sort of, like, high-angle GoPro or something like this. And then you change this to be VHS or old film or, I don't know, grainy, maybe. And you get this onboard, like, genuine footage effect. I mean, it's, you know, it's a little bit corny, but it works. That's pretty cool. Again, that's another thing you could do. You can just turn that on to record stuff, or you could embed it into your saved replay, whatever you want to do. But yeah, I just noticed that, and I thought I'd say that just before I end. So that just about covers it. That should be everything you need to know about the iRacing camera tool, how to use it, how to be creative with it, and make whatever the hell you want. Now it is simply up to you to just experiment. I'm aware this is completely different from my usual content, but I thought it was worth covering all this since the UI has changed and I've learned a lot more about the camera tool since I last did a video on it. So I apologize, this isn't the usual cinematic, crazy, awesome racing experience that I do, but I really do hope it was helpful. And if you did find it helpful, then please leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It really, really, really means a lot. We're trying to hit 2K subs. So yeah, any support is greatly appreciated. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.